everyone, welcome to the Captain Logan Show. It's me, Captain Logan, and we're starting real late for this show anyway on a Wednesday. Thanks for bearing with us, folks. Jason's got kind of a crazy dance schedule right now, and if he was going to be on the show today, we were going to have to do it late, so we appreciate you guys. Tonight, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to spend, I think, the majority of the time on our lead-in topic. We're going to do this more like a GNN, I think, and with some Q&A right after the fact. So we're going to talk tonight about game collecting versus comic book collecting. I'm a big comic book collector, as a lot of you guys know, but I also collect retro video games, and Jason is much more
a big video game
in the video game collecting scene, and so we wanted to kind of pro and con it and talk about, particularly in this day and age, in 2025, which of these is easier, which of these is more fulfilling, and what makes each easier or harder next to the other one, maybe to help folks decide if you're not collecting either of these things, what thing would be most worth jumping into, and just kind of just kind of like I said, pro and con it.
Mm-hmm.
This week we're putting out Superhero Rewind the movie. We just did the online premiere for some of our Super Chat supporters and patrons last night, and I want to thank everybody who came out for that. Let me mention real quick, so we did a Q&A after that, and that's only going to be available to patrons and people that supported the movie at a certain tier. But if you were a top super chatter last week and I haven't heard from you yet, you're still entitled to the link for that stream. Even though it's happened already, there is exclusive content that I promised you that you haven't gotten yet because I didn't hear from you. So also apologies to the couple of people that didn't get the email. For a couple of weird technical things happened, and I wasn't able to get a couple of people their early link, but I got them the link after the fact, for various reasons. So anyway, apologies to those folks, but if you were a top super chatter last week, I said actually the top 3, I think, from last show was supposed to get that, and I only heard from one person. So CaptainLogan1989 at gmail.com, I'll put that in the chat again. Email me and I will send you that link because you're entitled to that stream, even though it's happened already. 1 second. Dan said I couldn't see the stream, but I did watch the movie. Were you able to? Because I sent out to patrons both links, or patrons of certain tiers, both links, the movie as it will appear on Friday and the stream from last night. So Dan's Den, did that stream not play back for some reason? Were you not able to look at the Q&A? Let me know what's going on with that. Top Super Chatter tonight, if we have any takers, will get the early link to the movie. You'll get it 2 days early now. So it comes out Friday, so you'll get to watch it today, tomorrow, or earlier on Friday. And we'll, if we have very many takers, we'll even say top 2 Super Chatters tonight. We'll get a link to that. But you have to email me, or I can't send you that link. It's very important. Anyway, as always, you can leave us a super chat at any dollar amount that guarantees that we'll chat about your topic, and you can ask us things or put in your 2 cents about the main topic for this evening, or you can ask us about anything you want to, and just know that those things won't come up until a little bit later in the show. We will open with a Patreon question just so that we can get more of those knocked out. Did we catch up last time, or did we only get 1 or 2 of those?
I think we only got 1.
Okay, cool. Dan's Den, I didn't see a Q&A. It was just the movie. Yeah, Dan's Den, it just depends on what Super Chat or Patreon tier you're at. So I'll check your name and see where you're at. But I think you might have been at the $10 Super Chat tier, and that would have been just the link to the movie and not the Q&A. Because I was just trying to give out cool perks for different tiers. Anyways, but I'll check you later and make sure that I'm right about that. Jayson, go ahead and throw us a Patreon question, and then we'll get into our main topic for the evening.
Yeah, and let me know if we've done this, but I don't think we have, and it's a good first one.
Thanks for being here, guys. And also, as always, tag Jayson if you have a regular question. You don't want to leave a super chat. We'll try to get some of those as well. Go ahead, sir.
This is from Elliot Slater. Could you see the absolute versions of DC characters ever being adapted either in live action or animation?
I thought we tackled this one.
I didn't think we did.
Well, I'll do it real briefly. I thought we did this one already. Maybe I just saw it and I already thought it through and thought we talked about it.
That's good.
It's
possible.
No, I think, or maybe somebody else asked that on Comic Late Night. That's possible. I absolutely, you see what I did there? Could see it as animated series or animated movies, hard R, HBO Max stuff, or direct to, like on demand purchase streaming. I don't see it live action, although that stuff has been popular enough. Is it possible that it could inform? I swear to God, I've talked about this. That it could inform some of the later James Gunn movies or James Gunn led stuff, like Ultimate informed some Marvel movies. It's possible, although that stuff is so much more reinvented than Ultimate is, that it's a little bit harder to blend in pieces of it with something more traditional or authentic to the classic source material. But for instance, you look at Absolute Wonder Woman, and her backstory is certainly different than your typical traditional Wonder Woman. Like she was raised in hell in that book, but her philosophy and worldview, what she's all about, is very classic Wonder Woman, and she's the most likable I think that character's ever been. And so I could see a reinvention of that character on the big screen that is more or less what you're used to, except this one was raised in hell. Like I could see them doing it that way, and not everybody would like that, and I don't think that's ultimately what Gunn will do. But like, just as a for instance, but I wouldn't see like Martian Manhunter being handled the way Absolute Martian Manhunter is, because that's almost a metaphorical Martian Manhunter. Like he's not a Martian at all. He's got a alien like consciousness in his head telling him things. And the Martian thing even is just metaphorical. We don't even know where that alien's from, or at least so far in the series. So and it's this weird trippy psychedelic thing. But I could see like a cartoon thing being made.
Is he a manhunter?
Or an animated thing being made. Sort of, kind of. But I guess. The reason I'm saying it's possible and even likely in some capacity is just because it's so popular, and it's the only thing people are really paying attention to in DC right now. And as we talked about on Comic Late Night last week, to the detriment of everything else at DC. A lot of like major titles that always crack the top 100 or top 50 or top 20, just nowhere in sight, nobody paying attention to. So like Absolute Batman is creaming Batman.
That's hilarious.
I'm curious to see what will happen, and all the Bat books, like nobody cares about Nightwing now. Nightwing always within, I forget where, like top 50 I think at least. No one's reading that now. But we'll see what happens with Fraction taking over the book next month, the main book. And we're getting a new Batman #1. They're starting the numbering over because Chip Zdarsky's book was not popular, and people hate it. And what little I read of that seemed pretty awful and nonsensical and ridiculous. People were really excited about him on that book because people liked his Daredevil run. And then he immediately goes to Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, and it was bizarre. But anyway, I digress. When it's like not only the big thing everybody cares about at DC, but also is bringing some people back into comic shops. I mean, I saw like it seems likely that they'll milk that for all it's worth. And there's still a question of how long these actual books will run. Like, because it seems pretty clear that they were planned to not go forever. But I don't think it'll be like what Marvel's doing with New Ultimate, where it seems anyway like they're already ending it. I don't think that'll happen with Absolute. I think they'll stretch it farther than they thought they would, just because it's been so big. And also there's that worry that people won't go back to their old books even after Absolute is done. So like they could just totally shoot themselves in the foot. It's hard to say what exactly will happen with that, but. Anyway.
Yeah, I gotta finally read those. I haven't been in the headspace for comics at all.
But there's a lot of really great stuff going on right now. I can get you in the headspace. I can do it. I'll hand you the right stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I know what I want to read. I just haven't been in the mood for comics.
You and I'll just go to a coffee shop and I'll set a stack in front of you and we'll hang out for a couple hours. And I got some new stuff today that I'm really excited about. The new Tokusatsu-esque Batman from Kyle Higgins came out today. It looks really neat. I sent you some panels from that. I flipped through it. I spoiled some things for myself because I just couldn't wait to see what the art looked like. And it's neat. It's kind of campy but badass looking, like a Sentai or Power Rangers-esque Batman, and it looks really fun.
Yeah,
it's a big week. So I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about next week because we didn't do Comic Book Late Night last night. So I have 12 books to read, I think. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the lead-in topic.
Yeah.
Once again, folks, if you are so inclined to leave a super chat, top super chatter, top two super chatters, if we have any takers, we'll get a link to Superhero Rewind, the movie, early. It's going to premiere as a premiere, so obviously it's not live, but a live premiere. So it's running in real time, but you can, if you don't get there on time, you can scroll the slider back and start it from the beginning. It will start at 7 o'clock, and I will try to be in the comments, or at least in and out of the comments, if people want to chat a little bit. I'll be monitoring it as it's going, and then it'll be up as a regular video after that. So 7 o'clock Central, that's when that's going to air, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. We had a good turnout last night. We had a really good reception to it. And again, we had a really great in-person premiere on Saturday, and I couldn't have been happier about the reaction to the responses there. So not to get my hopes up too much, but it seems like people are really liking it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Tell me what you think. Don't hold back, but I hope you like it. All right, Jayson, let's talk about collecting comics versus video games. This was kind of a collaborative idea on our part. I pitched one thing. Jayson expected as I started talking that this is what I was pitching, and I was like, no, this is a better idea. Let's do this. So this is kind of Jayson's idea.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll let you start, man. Well, how should we approach this? Because I could see us doing this debate-esque, where it's like you take the side of video games, I take the side of comics, and we kind of pit them up against each other and it kind of go back and forth. This is why video games are more fun to collect now. No, this is why comics are. But I can also see just a general discussion where we're each throwing out the pros and cons. And however we do it, I think we need to acknowledge that there's kind of two different facets of this we should probably talk about. Tell me if you agree, but I think there's kind of two separate conversations to be had here with collecting current things that are being released now versus retro stuff. It's like it's an integrated game for a lot of people. Like some people are only buying current things, and some people are only buying older stuff, and a lot of people, of course, will mix and match. Yeah. Like rising prices and things, certainly are affecting both sides of that. But to some degree, in some capacity, I think those are kind of two separate conversations.
Yeah. And
so it's like, what are we even talking about? Like, I could see just talking about retro.
Yeah, I agree.
But I want to at least touch on what it's like doing this with things that are coming out now.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure people in the comments will want to talk about some of that stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you want to start. I don't know if you want to do the debate thing that you're talking about, or.
Well, I was going to leave that up to you.
Okay.
Because I was not going to approach it that way, but.
But then you thought about.
I thought you might want to do that.
Well, and definitely I know more about video game collecting than comic collecting.
Right.
Because you never actually did any like video game reselling. I know you did comic reselling.
Not regularly. No, I mean I have sold video games certainly.
Yeah. Okay.
But I had a full comic business. But there was a time when I was on eBay selling just whatever I could get my hands on, and I sold some video games during.
You did also work at GameStop, so
I did. That's true. That's a good point. But that was all current or like last generation.
Right.
That wasn't getting into retro. But of course, I've collected and sold some over time. But you're right. So like, I know more about comic collecting than video game collecting, but I probably know more about game collecting than you know about comic collecting. Could we say that?
Yes.
That's probably true.
Yes, that's probably true.
So
I know nothing. No.
So let's just pro and con it then. Let's start with the pros of each and the cons of each. So what in 2025 is still, because it's kind of easy to just go negative. Let's start with the positive. What is still fun about collecting video games now? I mean, the obvious detriment is rising prices.
Yeah.
And so you seem to think it's still worth doing, at least to some degree. So what's still fun about doing that now?
I think it is. I think there's a and this is a big thing I think we'll talk about is just I think there is still a fun in getting the actual physical media and playing it on the real hardware.
Yeah.
And which I know we'll talk about with comics too.
Yeah. Yes, reading comics on the original hardware.
Yeah. And just having a big shelf of video games and having different I mean there are so many different things with video games. You have all the different systems, and then you can say like you have all the different like branches of video game collecting, where you have it in like systems where I collect this system and this system and this system.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, that's cool, you have this and this, you have lots of stuff. And I think that's a big thing that I like about it, where I like having some sort of big library of each system that I own, and so it makes me actually have like 10 or to 15 different collections, even though it's all a big video game collection.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
The variety of it.
Yeah.
I think some of the fun of game collecting over comics to some degree is displayability.
Yes.
When you have a lot of comics, it's difficult to put them in anything but a bunch of boxes. People come over, wow, Cab, you've got 10,000 comics. They're just all in these big cardboard boxes. I can't look at them unless I take 3 hours to sort through things. Mm-hmm. And so games are a little bit easier to display, I suppose. A lot of games, of course, are still, and this is true of comics with digital now, are when you go back far enough, you can emulate them. You don't necessarily have to have the physical version in order to play it, but it's nice with certain things to play with the original controllers. And at the very least, like even if you buy something kind of expensive, if it's still working, there is this experience to be had with it. It's not just a thing necessarily to sit there. Although with video game grading, which people do now, and I think is very strange.
I think it's really strange.
Some people do look at it as this thing to keep pristine, almost taking game preservation to too literal of a degree in my mind. But one of the things I guess that's kind of nice about games over comics is I don't feel like people are, unless again they encase it in plastic like that. I don't think people are typically as concerned about messing it up by actually interacting with it. Like games are intended to be interacted with.
Yeah, that's a good That's a good point. Well, and also with a comic, usually you read it once. And like that is why a lot of old comics are not are very rare. Not just because they're old, but because
Well, they used to be considered more disposable entertainment, of
right.
course.
And I think that's something that's very different from video games because I mean, obviously video games were like that too if you factor in arcades.
Yeah.
But it's like if like 40s and 50s comics were the arcades and then the rest of it is console gaming. But
Yeah, comics go back a lot farther.
yeah, they do. That's true. But it's something where that's why I think comic grading is a little bit better than video game.
It makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, because you can replay a video game.
I hear the argument all the time from people, and understand, I'm not a big comic grade guy. I have issues with it, and I have about decided I'm not going to really do much of that, I don't think. But the argument I hear all the time against it is, well, it's a comic book, it's meant to be read, and now you're encasing it in plastic and all you're seeing is the front and back of it and you're grading it like a trading card. And my issue with that argument is, yeah, but if it's real valuable, you don't want to handle it too much.
Right.
Now, it would be nice to be able to, on very rare occasion, open it and prove that it looks as good as it does. Like, okay, it says 9.8, but you don't get to see the pages. You don't see. But then, if you start monkeying with it, you might ruin that grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might not be a very fine or a near mint anymore. So that's the catch-22 with that whole thing. So yes, you can't read it if it's in plastic. You're not going to have the same experience with it, but you can keep it in the condition that it was in. And I don't think for most people, condition is as big of a deal with video games.
Well, with video games,
I mean, it does matter, but like as far as a disc or a cartridge or something, it's just, well, you don't want it to be scratched up. You want to be able to still play it.
Well, with discs, most of those are usually just in a box.
Yeah.
And so that helps. It depends with cartridges.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like, I think video games are less easy to break because most of them are in boxes.
Yeah.
And
it's a little bit more durable of a medium.
yeah.
I mean, with comics, you're talking about paper.
And even with cartridges, it is technically the game encased in plastic, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the point of this stream is to figure out which one is better.
Well, we said versus.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of wanted to start in that place. Like, let's talk positives with games as far as just like seeking them out, the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah.
Like, is that still fun to you? Because that is harder in 2025 than it's probably ever been. Like, availability is tougher. Stuff's more expensive. There aren't as many retro game shops anymore. You can order stuff online, but you're usually paying a premium. It's not quite as much fun to go out and hunt in the wild as it was 20 or even 10 years ago. Because it used to be, like, when I was in college, you'd walk into a retro game store, and most of the major titles you've heard of are there. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
And much less, like, rare, obscure stuff. Yeah. And so, that's not as much fun, I don't think, as it once was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say it's not as fun now that I've like but also I think at this point we've got a pretty solid collection for both of these things. So I don't know if I am still collecting video games, but definitely not as much as I was.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this more of like if you're starting from scratch.
Right.
Like which thing would you choose? And I'll just say like right up front, getting into comic collecting is much easier than getting into video game collecting, but monetarily at the very least.
That's yeah.
But it always has been. That's the thing. Is like, the like both of these things are true, right? So comics and games, especially rare sought after stuff, have gone way up in price, comparatively. And it is still true that there are more cheap comics that you still might like and are fun to collect, even if they're not super valuable, than there are with video games. And that is not to say that there aren't cheap video games, but let's just start at like the bare bones elementary school place. Comics start out as more disposable. You're supposed to like impulse buy them kind of entertainment in the first place. So there's a lot of really valuable like rare or sought after comics that have, after they've been out for a while, or sometimes even just it comes out this week and it's a major key and so everybody's after it and now the price gets inflated. Like that happens. But we're talking even in 2025 when your average comic is $4 to $5, which is too expensive. But that's where we're at right now. Even still, it's more of an impulse buy than a video game. Mm-hmm. And we're talking, of course, the physical thing, not digital, because we're talking about collecting. So we're talking about collecting a physical item. When you get into digital, the two things are a lot more comparable. Mm-hmm. And it's still, video games are, for the most part, going to be more expensive than comics, but like comics and video games are both day and date the same price that they are on physical, and you don't have to worry about not being able to get your hands on them because they're digital. You just download them. So like at that point, you're kind of playing the exact same game. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to talk about physical. So with comics, even to this day in 2025, you will find dollar bins at comic shops.
Yeah.
And this is just, of course, not true of video games. Now, video games are a more immersive, longer experience.
Yeah.
And so, like, I guess you could compare them a bit more to trades, where, like, a trade takes longer to read, they're going to be more expensive than a single issue. You can spend $20, $30, $50, $100 on a trade depending on how much content is in it, right? If you're talking about, like, you know, hardcovers, absolutes, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're getting a little bit closer to video game prices at that point. So, like, I can make these things kind of comparable, but if we're just talking about collecting single issues of comics versus collecting video games, and you just want quantity, maybe even over quality, comics have always been easier to do this with, of course, than video games. And I think that's the fun thing about them, is that it's just a nickel and dime medium. You stack them up. It's like trading cards. You put them in a box. You organize them. You flip through them. You go, look at my 200 comics. Isn't that cool?
I was gonna say,
yeah,
it is a lot more comparable to trading cards.
Yep. No, of course,
and it always has been. And I'm gonna read the super chat because it actually goes to the thing that I was about to bring.
Let me get my going. Hold on. All right, go ahead.
This is a $5 super chat from John Early. What do you think about modded video game systems? The OG Game Boy can have a modded screen that makes it easier to see. Yeah, and so that brings me to comics. Usually you buy the comic and then you have this big collection of like lots of different comics, and you have like the big one, the biggest one in your in your collection, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I know that one, and that's super rare and that's great. But it's always like the same comics, like it's with video games, you can have
everybody's after their New Mutants 98s and their...
With video games, I think there's a lot more variety with just like, oh, I have all of these cool different like controllers, and I have this special kind of like video game console, and I have...
What's funny is, I think you're technically wrong, but it feels that way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm with you and I'm not with you. Like, there's obviously so many titles in comics, and there's so many different series that that different people like and are after. And yet, I think because of the point you made earlier with all of the different consoles and different eras, it does kind of feel that way.
Yeah. And, like...
Where people get in their niches.
It's just weird because they're both in their respective mediums. Like, comics, with a comic, it's a thing that you open up and you read, and with a video game, it's a thing that you put in the thing and then you play.
Yeah.
But the thing is, video games just have multiple, like, steps, and so you have...
Well, there's all these accessories and things. Like, we're just
Yeah.
talking about games, but with comics, there's the one thing you're collecting.
Right.
It's the paper that you read. And, yeah, there's different versions of it.
Yeah, and there's different...
Where you can just collect single issues like we talked about, or you can get trades that have a lot of issues in them, or you can get big hardcovers, but it's all the same
covers and...
it's all the same thing. The accessories in comics are just the boring stuff that you have to have for preservation. So, like, boxes are no fun unless they've got pictures on them. Nobody gets excited about Mylar bags and boards.
Mm-hmm.
But you go to video games, and, like, all we've been talking about are collecting the actual games, the cartridges, the discs. But there's also the fun of different kinds of controllers and different peripherals. And, like, people will hunt for boxes or get custom-made boxes because there's the cartridge, but then there's also the box that it came in, and then if you go back far enough, there's manuals, and so, like, there's the thrill of getting a thing complete. There's getting a system in a box.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is all obvious and elementary, but I think it's important in illustrating what's different about going after these things, and I think why it appeals sometimes to different kinds of people, right, Jayson? Because you're talking about technology versus books, and so when you're dealing with technology, again, if you go back far enough, there's a thing you have to own before you can play with the other thing you own. Like, you have to put a thing inside of a thing and then deal with it. And of course, comics are just the thing that you have.
Yeah. But
which makes it simpler.
Right. But
in a way.
But does that make a video game collection seem cooler?
To some people, certainly, and that's why some people will prefer to collect video games over comics. I also think they both appeal to completionists in a way, but I think if you are a completionist, if you have that mentality as a collector, comics are easier.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree? Because, especially, again, in 2025, with prices so high for a lot of games of certain consoles, if you want to complete, and there's different ways to complete, right? There's different kinds of completionists. But you'll have people that will go after entire libraries. Getting everything on NES now, good luck. Like, getting everything on Genesis now, good luck.
Yeah.
So you could be a completionist in, I'm going to buy every game of a particular character, like, depending on what that character is. Or I'm going to get most everything in a particular genre. You know, like, if you're a fighting game collector on, like, the Genesis or the Super Nintendo, like, that's probably mostly obtainable. Like, you can probably do that. There's certain systems that would be a lot harder on. You know, like, if you were going to do that on Saturn, like, some of those get expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But with comics, there's so many different ways to be a completionist. You know, you go after a whole run of something.
Yeah.
And like, most major characters have existed for so long that it would be crazy to try to own every single issue that a certain character appeared in or is on a cover or something. Especially now, because if somebody gets too popular, we just oversaturate it like crazy. So, like, I used to own everything with Venom. I ain't trying that anymore, because most of it's terrible, and that got arguably more popular than Spider-Man, or right as popular as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Just with collectors. So, not to get too in the weeds with this stuff, but I'm just saying, I think the completionist mentality, comics probably went out a little bit with video games, but there are ways to be a completionist collector with video games.
Yeah. Well, I think we should also talk about video game stores versus comic stores as well.
Yeah. I think there was a time when those were pretty evenly matched.
Yeah.
and when it was really fun to go to both. And I think now comic stores absolutely have the edge
I agree.
over game stores.
Yeah.
You will also find places that do both now, which used to be kind of unheard of. But
yeah. Usually they'll have like figures too, right?
I mean, these days you've got to be at least 2 things, if not more. Nobody is keeping a comic store open just with pull lists anymore. And like, you always had back issue bins, but it used to be you could kind of do new issues and back issues and kind of be safe. Every place now, almost every place does something else on top of it. It's very often cards. Pokemon cards is the big thing right now. The shop I go to, they have a huge Pokemon following, and that's part of what keeps them alive, I think. That's a newer store, and they were really smart to start with that. But every place does something else.
Yeah. Yeah, the big one is just like comics and board games.
Yes, but board games is huge for comic shops too.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of places go much more in the manga direction. So even if they have American comics, they're, and every store is different, but I've seen a lot of places more recently where a lot of their other merchandise seems much more in the manga direction, the anime direction.
Yeah. And usually, the bigger stores will have like a big manga and anime section.
Well, and that's how you're bringing in Gen Z, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's an increasing demographic that's not even going to walk into your door if you don't have that or Pokemon cards or board games or something.
Yeah.
If it's just a comic shop selling American comics now, it's going to be 40 plus at this point, I would argue. 35 maybe. Mm-hmm. Like, it's pretty... I feel like I'm at the kind of the youngest end, or real close to the youngest end now, of a demographic that will still go into stores just for comics.
Yeah.
I'm like I don't mean to pigeonhole people. Like, everybody's different, but I'm talking about to get enough people in the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, video game stores are weird now.
Well, and I think it's also important. Again, this is kind of elementary, but I think it's important to point out too the ways the two mediums, or the two I guess types of collectibles, degrade. Right. So the technology is just not gonna function forever.
Yeah.
And if you can preserve the paper, it will last longer. Now, there's, of course, it's hard to keep a comic pristine forever, but I own, the oldest comic I own is from 1941, and it's still intact.
Yeah.
Or 47. I keep conflating that. It's Batman. I think it's number 41 and it's from 1947, but I can never remember if it's from 47 and it's number 41. I gotta look it up again. But anyway, that comic is almost 100 years old, or like it's 85. Like it's pushing 100. And if you had a Super Nintendo game that was 85 years old, it might still play. Mm-hmm. And then is the hardware still gonna function? Like, it's technology. And so as long as the thing is, the comic is still intact, you got to be really careful with it. And it might get brittle depending on the kind of paper it was printed on. But you'll still be able to use it for what was intended to, even if that's not the smartest idea. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You can still open it and read it. Your game might not function. Your system might not function.
Right.
And so the purpose of them is kind of different. But if you're collecting them just to collect them, where you like having them around, you want the bragging rights of saying, I have this old rare thing or this highly sought after thing, then whether it still functions, whether it's in perfect shape, might not be as material. Mm-hmm. Or again, it just depends on the kind of collector you are. Or the shape of it might be more important than being able to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's all stuff to consider. But like, as long as I keep my comics in the right kind of environment, and I am protecting them they'll, you don't put them in sunlight or whatever, they're gonna look the same. They're gonna do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so that's an edge that has over video games to some degree.
That's true. You won't have a comic that will turn yellow like your Super Nintendo.
What I'm finding with some of my old games is they'll sit on a shelf for a long time, and there's a lot of stuff that I don't use because I have ways to emulate it, right? And then I'll finally go, it would be fun to play on old hardware again, on original hardware, and then I'll put it in, and it doesn't function, or it functions for a while. Like, I've been playing with my Dreamcast a lot lately, which I hadn't gotten out for a long time. And I was playing Crazy Taxi 2 a bunch over the last couple of days, and then I don't actually know if I like this game as well as the original, so I went back to the original, and it played for 10 minutes and it crashed.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a little scratched up. Maybe I just need to buff it. I cleaned it a little bit, and I played it again, and it seemed okay, but the system was really loud, like it was struggling real hard to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how much stuff is in my collection that I think I can play, but I can't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There is that to think about.
Yeah. Well, and Dreamcast just is like that. Kind of sucks.
Go ahead and read those super chats if they're relevant.
They are. $5 from Robbie the Sky.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Only collect Sonic and 90s Superboy comics. I'm not a retro gamer, but I like buying new physical games and collector sets. But is that a real collection?
Well, I think anything you're passionate about that you have multiples of is a real collection. I think one of the things that is frustrating about collecting is it's really hard not to compare yourself to other people, and to hold yourself to standards other collectors have. Like with comics, the people that think that you're not a real collector, you're not a big boy collector if you're not buying graded comics, or you're not getting your comics graded, or if you want a whole run that has a bunch of nickel and dime stuff in it instead of just the big expensive keys.
Yeah.
But some of us don't care as much about that. Some of us, it's a matter of just owning the things that we really like. And what I've found is a lot of collectors will try to play that game for a while and realize it's no fun, and they quit and they sell all their stuff. What's a lot more fun is to go and like, if you really want keys just for the bragging rights, that's totally cool. I've also known people that find that game fun and they don't lose interest in it. But the FOMO is the problem. The fear of missing out. If you just personally think it's cool to only have the really important issues, knock yourself out. If you only want the really, and this goes for video games too, you only want the real rare expensive stuff, or you only want like the huge important titles, the things that might go up in value down the road, where you could sell them and make a down payment on a house. If you're only collecting those things because somebody told you that's what's important, you're probably going to lose interest in it. Mm-hmm. That's probably not going to be fun for you anymore. What I find is fun is going after a run, or going after some kind of completionist thing. This is how I collect Batman Pops. Not to stray this away too much from comics and video games, but I'll just use this as an example, and I can do this with comic ones too. But I collect every pop that is Batman, or has Batman ears, right? And I've limited myself to that, even though that's a huge collection, because I'll buy too much if I don't, and it focuses me, right? So there are lots of cheaper nickel and dime pops in there, but there are some more valuable ones. There are some kind of grails in there. And then there's always the question, when you run into one, is it worth my dropping the $40, $50 or whatever it is for this one? The feeling you get sometimes when you go ahead and do the splurge, and you go, I'm that much closer to this completionist goal I have, it can be a really good feeling, and that's a much better feeling than I dropped $100 on a thing I don't really want because somebody told me it was important, and I'm not a real collector if I don't get them. You see what I'm saying? And I can make the rules for myself. With the Batman Pops, I can go, I want to get as close to completion as I can, but if there is a Comic-Con exclusive that's $300 and I don't even like that one that much, I don't have to buy it.
You're right.
You know, there's nobody holding a gun to my head saying I have to have this thing.
Yeah.
And the same is true with comic runs. So it can be fun to me to go, okay, there's 2 books left in this run. Every book I bought so far was $1 or $2, and that's the most I've spent. But I need these 2 either like low print run books or keys that are like $45-50. And I've got the disposable income this month, and if I drop that, I've got all of it. That can be fun. And then it's worth it. Then it feels okay to spend that extra money.
Yeah.
So that's my speech about avoiding FOMO as a collector.
I agree with all of that.
Tom also nostalgic value more than dollar value. Yeah, absolutely. Now, that's not to completely discount dollar value, because it can be really fun to own something that a lot of people perceive as valuable. And so you got to be careful to walk that line and not compare yourself too much again. But for instance, I've got a New Mutants 98. I've talked about this on the comic show. And I used to buy out comic collections, and I just happened to wind up with one. And it was before the Deadpool movies, and it was as expensive, and everybody was after it. And I didn't even know it was in a box. And I had a flea market booth, and I was out working my booth. This was like 6-7 years ago, and my wife calls me. She was going through sorting some books for me, and she was helping me out with this. And she calls me up and she goes, "Do you know that you own a New Mutants 98?" And so it was cool to know that there was like a $400 or $500 book. It's gone down in value since then. There's a $400 or $500 book sitting at home. We didn't even know we had it. So I don't know. That can be fun.
Yeah, that is fun. And you can do that with comics a lot better than you can with video games, like the reselling thing.
Yeah.
There's not really such thing as getting a big video game collection.
People used to do a lot more of that, and they still will. People will buy out collections, or they'll buy, random lots and things. But these days, there's so many games, especially for particular systems, that are more valuable than they used to be, that have cracked $80, $100, $200. That if you buy a collection, you're not going to get those. Most anybody that's going to sell a bunch of games at once probably knows what they have. On the other hand, you also have, and I just see video after video being made about this, you also have a lot of retro game collectors that have kind of gotten tired of doing that and are sitting on all these games that they never play, and they go, well, I don't think it's actually worth it just to take up space, and I don't play these, and they start to feel kind of silly about it, and they'll sell their stuff cheaper than they once would have, knowing that it's more valuable than that, just to get rid of it. So it's interesting. I think you have that happening a lot more with video games, where you can get a deal sometimes from people that know what they have because they're ready to be done with this. And so that's interesting. And you're going to have that a lot less with comics. Although it does happen some with comics.
Yeah.
But I think that's another thing to mention, just proing and conning this. The space issue. I mean, both things can take up enormous amounts of space.
Yeah.
But as far as space per item, comics went out on this too.
Really?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're talking flat comics, I can put 200 comics in a long box, and I can put like 40 games on one bookshelf. Like, just objectively, comics take up less space.
That's true.
But you probably are going to own a lot more of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's that. Like, If you have a big collection like mine, like my comics take up a lot more space than my video games do.
It's really funny because
Actually, I don't even know if that's true.
no,
It's maybe equal.
I think it's equal. What's funny about it is you have things like, if you, I think it's just about because the comics are flat.
Yeah.
And like cartridges are like not flat.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, oh yeah, a cartridge is like less than half of
But you also
the
have
size
to,
of a comic.
but you also have to keep the systems in mind and the
Right.
peripherals. Those also take up space, and that's part of the collecting of it.
Yeah, well, that's what makes.
I mean,
it
there are people that collect multiples of the same system.
which is awesome.
In fact, Jayson is one of those. Jayson does have multiple DSs.
Yeah, that's the one system I do that with. Although it would be fun to do that with Game Boys too.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there are reasons to have more than one. Like, you don't do that just because you want every color of something or whatever. Like, you do that because for practical reasons. Like, you network them. You play like multiplayer with DSs and different of them handle a little bit differently.
Yes.
So like, there's pros and cons to having a DS Lite versus a DSi versus an XL, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Which I still don't have a working DSi XL. I need to get one of those. and a working DS Lite. There's lots of DSs. I want to get like 20 DSs and then just like have a big party and everyone plays DSs.
Something else I wanted. We should read some more comments here pretty soon, Jayson. Another aspect of this I wanted to bring up in just comparing these in 2025 is mentioning that the bubble has burst for one of these but not the other. Mm-hmm. So during COVID, neither of these was easy to collect. Like, things got, well, they were easy in that there was a lot of stuff being sold, but the demand went way up because everybody was just in their houses with nothing to do, and they started ordering crap like crazy. So video games skyrocketed in a way we had never seen before. But a lot of people weren't paying attention as much to comics because that was happening with video games. But it was happening with comics too, and you saw these giant percentages of growth with both old books and new books. And you saw you saw modern stuff and things that just came out in the last few years that there were plenty of copies of, that there were going to be a lot of 9.8s of, because people do tend to keep better care of their comics than they used to be, because it's thought of as a potential investment now. And so you had to know that the bubble was going to burst on this, and that a lot of the books that people were spending hundreds of dollars for during COVID a few years later wouldn't be worth as much. And I've seen a couple of videos breaking down just how much some of the stuff has dropped, and we're talking like sometimes between, for like first appearance keys for characters in like the last 10 years, 15 years, stuff like what is it, Venom #3, the first appearance of Null, where like that was selling, I forget what, but that was selling for like $100, couple $100, and it's dropped significantly. And so like a lot of this stuff, we're talking like now 75 to 95% drops.
Because people realize how dumb that was.
Yeah, and so people were again just playing the stupid 90s speculative game that completely tanked the industry. And so it was a great time to be a seller in 2022. It was a really bad time to be a buyer back then. It is flipped now. The crash has not ended yet with comics. And it's sad if you've got high dollar books.
Yeah.
And like it's affecting some things more than others, but it looks like even some Silver Age stuff we're seeing kind of drop a little bit. So I went into my comic shop the other day, and they had some early Silver Age X-Men's behind the counter. And I had been eyeing those for a while. They had 23, they had 25, a couple other issues. 25 they had listed as a $100 book. 23 they had listed as a $50 book. 25 is just a more sought after cover. And I asked Chris to bring those down for me, different Chris, and I was looking through those comics, and I was thinking about grabbing one. I hadn't bought anything that old in a while, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna splurge today. I'm gonna get something older, Silver Age. See if I can get something older than any X-Men I have. I think my oldest X-Men was like 58 or something, and I was like, I want to go earlier than that. And he goes, well, all of these are gonna have to be cheaper than what they're labeled because the market's dipping. And he'd had these maybe 2 or 3 months behind the counter. So 2 or 3 months ago, he labels X-Men number 25 as a $100 book, and he says, I can sell it to you for $75. And I don't think he was just giving me a nice discount because I've been shopping with them a lot and we're friends. He looked it up, and he goes, oh, the market's dipped. That's not what it's worth anymore. So I didn't buy that one. I bought X-Men 23. Now the earliest X-Men that I have. I'll show it next week on the comic show. For $35. He had it listed as a $50 book. The collectible market for comics continues to tank. Now, will it bounce back at some point? Never to the degree that to where it was at COVID. I don't think it's possible for that to happen again. That was insane. Even if there was a second COVID, I don't think it would happen again. But it's probably at this insane low place and will either level off, or I think books of a certain age and a certain interest will have to rise again to some degree. So I think it's a really good time to buy comics. That bubble has not burst for video games yet.
Yeah.
Now, I also saw a video about the steady decline of some games that were real high during COVID. So it is also happening to video games because that was not sustainable. And you're nuts if you thought that was sustainable. You had all these people spending insane amounts of money on books and video games going, I can make a fortune on this later. Well, what, you thought it was just going to keep going up? Like, it was going to have to drop off at some... Even if it leveled off, how much money are you going to make on that?
Yeah.
What is your margin?
Yeah.
I mean, it was hilarious. So anyway, people keep waiting for the game bubble to burst for it to crash the same way, to have like a stock market kind of crash, to have it crash the way comics did. Because comics crashed like almost overnight, like a year ago. Maybe it was a couple of years ago. I wasn't keeping up with this as hard then as I am now. Now I'm paying attention. But video games, that hasn't happened yet. It's been a steady decline. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it will ever be a buyer's market for games again. And so comics have that edged out right now. Like, if you want to get into something real collectible that's kind of pricey, but your stuff, and like, comics don't have to be pricey, but like, even if you want to get the pricier stuff, now's the time over a few years ago. Now, there's still a lot of stuff that's worth a lot more than it was 10 or 20 years ago. So it's this is not to say that everything is dropped way below what the market value used to be, but it's dropped way below what it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Now, I will say, I think I would say video games are not as overwhelming to collect. Because you have, like, you know, okay, I'm going to collect Super Nintendo. You have... I mean, I don't even know how many Super Nintendo games someone, like, you know, your normal person can name. So if they have just their Super Nintendo games that they want, you know, cool. With comics, if you want to collect Batman, you have, like, hundreds of comics. And, you know, you have, like, all of the spin-offs, all of this stuff. And so, I think at least getting started, it's maybe not as overwhelming with video games, but I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, it's not as overwhelming.
It's also a lot of, like, I
guess it just depends on what you're after, right?
Right.
Because I think games and comics have a little bit of the same thing in that there's the real obvious stuff everybody knows, and you can go after that, and then there's the off the beaten path stuff that not as many people have heard of. And so, like, there is an equivalent of indie creator-owned stuff in comics versus indie games, or even just, you know, hidden gems or whatever, like games that a lot of people haven't heard of, or a lot of people that don't like consume YouTube videos about video games all day long. You know what they haven't heard of. But you're right. Like if you just like to play or collect a certain kind of game, you can grab whatever shooter or whatever shoot 'em up or beat 'em up or whatever it is without playing a bunch of other ones. And even a lot of the time in franchises, because it's not story driven, there's not as much of an incentive to get or play like every game up to a thing. Like if you find out that Streets of Rage 2 is the best Streets of Rage, you don't have to play the first Streets of Rage. Like you just play that. But I think comics are absolutely more of a weird entry for people that have never bought or read them. And it's a little bit of a different conversation to be had with reading comics versus collecting them. Certainly a lot of people do both, but there are a lot of people that if they just want pretty covers or they just want the like real significant stuff, it's not so much about what do you have to have around it to understand what's happening in the story. No, it's about owning it. You know what I mean? And I think with video games, for the most part, and hopefully I'm not repeating myself too much, for the most part, I think game players and game collectors are a lot closer together. I think a lot of people that own a lot of games at least want to think that they're going to play them. And that's not the case for some comic collectors. I have met comic collectors with collections much larger than mine. I'm at 10,000. I've met people with 40, 50,000 piece comic collections that cannot tell you what happens in anything or who the creators are. I went and bought some books from a guy whose entire basement was comics. It was remarkable. It was like going to Willy Wonka's freaking chocolate factory if Willy Wonka didn't know anything about chocolate. It was very strange. Like, this guy had a compulsion. He had a weird obsession. It was all just, and I can sympathize to some degree, but like, I have a lot of comics I've never read, but like, I know stuff about comics. It was very strange to see a guy that owned a thing in order to just organize them. Where like he didn't seem to even know that Watchmen was a standalone series that for a long time didn't have offshoots. Like he didn't know how many issues were in Watchmen. Like, it's very strange. He probably couldn't tell you who wrote or drew Watchmen. This guy. And he had more comics than I've ever seen in my life. And had just moved and had a huge U-Haul in his yard that he had to rent just to move the comics. It's very strange.
That's very strange.
I don't think you see this in games. You see what I'm saying? I don't think you see this in video games.
Yeah. Well, and they're just just
that's
very different breeds, you know what I mean? I mean, like, video games are made, I don't know, they're both made for their specific, but video games are, like,
well, I know a lot of people that do both, and I mean, I do both. And I also have the same thing with comics and games in that I just like being surrounded by them.
Yeah.
Like it's a thing I like having around.
That's why I still like
even if I'm not playing them. Yeah. But like I have played them. You know what I mean? I just think it's strange to own 50,000 comics and I can't tell if you've ever read one.
Yeah.
I also think comics edge out video games tell me if I'm right that this is indisputable. For current, because games are almost entirely digital now. We've pretty much moved past physical games, except for some of the indie scene. So, if you're a physical collector and you like retro, there's still indie companies making stuff for Genesis and Super Nintendo and stuff like that, and that's kind of neat. You have like limited run games, which I know people have issues with that company, but like there's other companies that do that, and so there's still stuff out there, but most mainstream stuff, if you get it on a disc, and we've talked about this before, most of it's not on the disc, or none of it is on the disc. Now Switch 2 is doing the game keycard thing, which is pissing off a lot of people, and when you buy games now, most of the time you're not actually buying games. And at least that's not the case with comics, even though comics and games both are going up in price, and I think both are becoming prohibitively expensive. Mm-hmm. And so that is a big drawback to both of them with current. And that's what kind of sucks, is that's a drawback both for current and retro. With both comics and games, we're inflating the prices for new, but resellers and collectors are arguably inflating prices for old stuff also, even if some of those prices have been coming down. But relative to what you could buy stuff for, even things that came out in the 90s, 10 years ago, it's still quite a bit more in both categories. But again, and not to go in circles, at least there's a lot more variety and entry points in comics, in my opinion. Like, if you want to cap off at a certain dollar amount with comics, you can get a lot more bang for your buck. If you want to say... Now, we all know that video games come out at much higher prices than comics, like I said earlier. There have been more real high dollar comics as far as perceived value for collectibles much longer than there have been that for video games. But as far as just what they initially came out for, when I was growing up, comics were $1.50. Mm-hmm. and then $2, and they kept going up. When I was growing up, video games were anywhere between $40 and $80. Mm-hmm. Like, depending on the system, depending on the release, games were expensive. And I grew up in, or once I was an adult, I was in this kind of sweet spot period where, with rare exception, your Earthbounds, your Sonic Jams, whatever, we were expecting games to be a fraction of what they cost when they came out. Mm-hmm. We were expecting a $60 Super Nintendo game to be $20 or less now. Yeah. And that was the case for major titles even for a pretty long time. Yeah. So we all understand that you're probably going to pay more for a video game than you are a single issue comic. But if you want to cap yourself off for pretty cheap and say, comics, I'm never going to pay more than $5 for a book, and that's on the high end. I want to pay $1, $2, $3 most of the time. Yeah. You can still do that. Yeah. There's stuff you're going to want that you can't get, but you can still do that, and you can go in dollar bins, and you will, all day long, find stuff that's actually worth $4 or $5. Mm-hmm. Like, that will still happen. With video games, if you cap yourself, let's say the equivalent is like $20. I'm never going to pay more than $20 for a game. That's much tougher now than it was 20 years ago. Mm. Yeah. So my argument is comics actually kind of edge out video games in nearly every category. Yeah. As far as being in easy, like entry level collectible in 2025. But I also think it's always been easier to collect comics. And so then the question more is just, like, which of them is more fun? And I think that's going to be up to you.
Yeah, I agree.
I think collecting old games is more fun for you because you're just more interested in them. I mean, I think that's obvious, but I think that's really the answer at the end of the day, is what do you care more about?
Yeah. No, that's true. We have a $2 super chat from John Early.
Oh, thanks.
eBay for buying video games versus buying comic books.
That was not a very loud gong.
Uh,
Yeah, so both of them, you gotta be real careful and do your homework before you bid on something, before you do a buy now. You want to check closed listings. You want to see what people have actually been willing to pay, and see if you're being if somebody's trying to kind of scalp you. And as far as just which of them I prefer to buy on eBay because it's being shipped and you might be concerned about the condition it will come in the mail. Believe it or not, I'm actually probably feeling better about buying a comic on eBay than a game. And it almost doesn't matter like how expensive it is. Like there is that risk, of course, that it's going to come damaged, but if they say they'll take a refund, then you can take that risk. If not, I probably wouldn't do it if it's valuable enough and supposed to be in a particular condition. So like if you're buying an ungraded comic that they claim, and they have good pictures and you buy it, they claim near mint, very fine, I might be leery of that. Mm-hmm. But with games, you just don't even know if they're gonna play. Mm-hmm. You know, there's always that worry. It's just no fun to have to send them back. Mm-hmm. I have gotten trades damaged in the mail. Usually, if you buy singles, they're packed a lot better. I've rarely gotten single issue comics that weren't packed well. Mm. But you're certainly taking a big risk either direction. But as far as prices go, it's kind of the same game. You just got to do your homework. Mm-hmm. And you got to know that a lot of people are going to be trying to get top dollar on eBay. eBay is this gigantic double-edged sword where it sets the standard for everything. It sets the standard both for video games and comics and nearly anything else you can think of that people will buy online. Because it's convenient. You can go on and usually find one unless it's extremely rare. And if somebody is dumb enough to spend too much, it hikes all the prices up. Because now there's precedent. It's all about precedent. It's all like the court system.
Yeah.
There's precedent. So now it's worth this. Yesterday it sold for $100, but some dumbass today spent $200 on it. So now that's what it's worth.
Yeah.
That's what it's like.
Yep. Stop spending $200 on things.
And so it's interesting that when you buy something, like this online, you do have the potential to make a difference in what the perceived value is of it. Mm-hmm. It's not always the case, but a single bad buy can actually affect it for everybody.
Yeah.
That does happen. We're at about an hour 15. Let's go ahead and open up for full-on Q&A now. We can keep talking about this. We can talk about whatever you guys want to for, 15, 20 minutes. We might go a little bit longer if there's a lot of interest. We don't have a big crowd right now. But Jayson, go ahead and check comments and see if there's other things people are saying that we should respond to outside of Super Chats. A lot of people weighing in on this. We should read some of these comments. And again, you guys feel free to ask questions or leave comments about anything you want to. Sorry, before you do that, let me make my last big point on this, because there's something I meant to bring up earlier.
Sure.
That I didn't oh no, we touched on that. Never mind. Mm-hmm. Never mind. Yeah, because I just wanted to talk about the kind of bubble with both of them. Yeah, no, we dealt with that. So yeah, go ahead and read some comments if you would.
Okay, this is from Sebastian Travis. Don't forget, physical games are dying. At least comics remain flexible and unchanged, like books, and are digital friendly.
And they're also physically flexible, but you don't want to do that or you're going to crack the spines.
Yeah.
And games tend to be more rigid, unless it's a disc, and then you could break it by doing that. But no, he's right, and we did finally touch on that. We waited too late to finally bring that point up. But yes, comics at least remain a physical thing that while we have digital, the digital is not completely won out on it yet. And it probably won't. Like the collector market, as much as it might be dwindling because a lot of younger people are not getting involved, still drives the industry for better or worse. And so if it was a totally story-driven industry, and as much of a singles collector as I am, I wish it was more that way. It is an outdated mode. It would it would be better for everybody. I think. I don't know. I feel like I'm part of the problem. Like I love collecting singles. I don't like how gimmicky the market is. I don't like what it does to stories. In writing for the miniseries and for the trades, and in the variant incentives and the 1 out of 25s and you know all of that stuff. But I have always collected them, and I just love them as a product. And so while I'm back in it now because I like some things that are going on finally. I don't like everything. There's a lot of stuff I don't like. Marvel almost entirely is still awful. But like I'm not even buying hardly anything from Marvel right now. But occasionally they're doing okay things. But I can simultaneously still enjoy that part of the hobby, buying and collecting singles, and also think that it's an outdated mode and the stories would be better if we weren't writing for the week-to-week buy. I saw a video the other day from a guy that was suggesting that the way DC and Marvel sell comics now to collectors, it almost feels like the interiors are an afterthought. That the actual story doesn't matter, it's just what's on the cover. Yeah. And I buy for covers, but I don't like that. Because the thing is, and I've talked about this before, but I have kind of two brains about it. And by the way, this can apply for games sometimes too. So like I'll swing this back around to video games. But I read a lot in digital. I have started reading physical more because I'm buying singles again. So like, I spent $5 on that thing. I will read it. But I do still read kind of more digital than I do physical. And so I do buy for covers. Like, I like the look of them. I like decorating with them. I like flipping through my boxes and seeing, the cool covers that I bought. And I have another way that I can read. I would be doing this a little bit differently if we didn't have really good digital access these days. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? When it comes to emulation and stuff, I think the same can be true for video games. I think you can go, I want the original just to say I have it, just for, the kind of time capsule or time machine. It takes me back to that time. Especially if you have it complete in box and you want to keep it in nice shape, you go, like, I've got my complete, not that this is an expensive game or anything, but, like, I've got my complete, like, Sonic 2 on Genesis with the booklet, but I have 900 other ways to play that game. I may not actually go physically pull the cartridge out, but I'm not going to sell it. I want to have that. So, I mean, like, there is a correlation there between the two.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
What else are people saying?
I think Sebastian Travis also said something about making like indie comics is easier than making indie video games.
Oh yeah, absolutely, that's true. I mean, making comics is easier than making video games, just full stop. Especially if you're by yourself. I mean, and that's not taking away from the difficulty of making a comic book, but it's not making a video game. Like, these are really different things. Yeah. And one is more time consuming than the other, certainly. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily affect people's interest in collecting them.
Braden Atkinson says there are good $1 video games. I don't.
There might be games that at some point go on sale for $1.
Yeah.
I don't think there are games that really come out for $1. Now, to be fair, there are a lot of dollar comics that didn't start as $1 going both directions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
But yes, I mean, just generally speaking, games are going to be more expensive than comics. But it's weird comparing them.
Yeah.
Because you're going to spend more time on a game than you are on a comic.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's just a totally, different experience.
Yeah. Sebastian Travis, the beauty in comics, even if I'm not a premium collector, is the simplicity.
Yeah.
Video games can get very gimmicky with their loot boxes or ultra mega edition, etc., like microtransactions.
Well, and then once you get to that era, it just stops being as much about the physical collectability anyway. Like, it starts to be much more about digital gaming. Not that there aren't physical games that have, loot boxes and DLC and all of that, but, like, it starts to feel a lot less about owning a thing you can have in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, even if there is a disc involved, it's like so much of the content isn't even inside the thing that you got.
Yeah.
But I have played games that don't have a lot of DLC that still do the loot box thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, even Injustice has something similar to that, although that also has DLC, but...
That does have DLC.
Yeah. Okay, what else are people saying?
It has good DLC, though. That's pretty much it. They were just talking about what we were already talking about.
I thought I saw a few other things. Sebastian Travis, this crash only applies that treat comics as an investment and profit-driven. It doesn't affect the others like me that focus on the art form aspect itself. The 90s had an industry crash for the big two, but biggest growth for indie titles. That's true. Gaming crashed in the 80s with Atari. Well, yes, that is all true. Yeah, I agree and I don't. When you say the crash only applies for people that look at it as an investment, because as a collector, there are old books I don't plan to ever buy that I am willing to pay more for. That, again, during COVID went just to an astronomical place where I'm never going to be able to get my hands on it, and are now becoming more reasonable because that crash happened. So, like, it's better for guys like me, and it's terrible for people that looked at it as a gigantic investment. And I'm looking when we're talking about, and that's why I said it's almost a different conversation when you're talking about current versus older stuff. Like, it's all interconnected, of course, but like the 90s crash, that was that like destroyed the new industry, but of course a lot of books weren't thought of as valuable as they were. So, like, it is a symbiotic relationship. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, like, you're right, but I think it affects everybody. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No. You're right.
Like, if you had a big 2 crash right now, like, when you say indie titles were thriving, would that, like, just not touch indie titles at all? Like, I kind of think it still would.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, Saga #1 is like the first printing. Yeah. Is a real $high book now. And it's still high right now, but like, if you had a full-on industry crash, I mean, like one of the big two files Chapter 11, does that not affect the value of that book? I don't know. It's actually hard to say.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big economics guy.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to act like an expert with this.
I didn't realize that got that expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. It's like Walking Dead.
But I didn't realize that was that expensive either. So.
Oh yeah, Walking Dead's nuts. And there's like a lot of issues of that are pretty high dollar now.
So Walking Dead started in the 2000s?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what
What? Early 2000s?
I didn't know if it was late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah. But like I said, I'm not like a full-on expert or nothing. And this is all relative. So like I said earlier, there are still a lot of books that are worth a lot more than I ever thought they'd get to.
Yeah.
But just compared to the insanity from a few years ago, they've come back down some. Like, if I was ever going to sell my New Mutants 98, I should have done it 3 years ago. Like, I had it during COVID.
Yeah.
I had it when that book was selling for $700. Now I'm lucky if it's $300.
Yeah.
But I don't plan on selling it. Sebastian Travis, comics are better than everything else besides books. Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, a lot of the reason that I collected comics was just because they were cheap. Like, it's... And obviously, because I love the art and stories and characters, but as a kid with little disposable income, it was an easy thing to amass quickly. And so again, the brain that you have is a little bit different between that and video games. But then, a lot of people that play and collect games like to have a lot of them. Also.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that are made for every system, and you have people that it seems like they've somehow played every game on a system.
I don't.
You know, it's like, how do you even have time to do that? I don't
Or the
understand.
money.
So there is a quantity thing with both of these.
Yes.
And there's that bragging factor of here's all this cool stuff
I
on my
think
shelf
video
that I can prove to
game
you that I
collectors
have.
are just crazier people. So.
Say again.
I think video game collectors are just crazier people.
But you're like more interested in doing them. So what is it with you, Jayson, and just like older technology? Because I know for you with video games, a lot of it is just, this is stuff that was around before I was born, and I just find it interesting. Because you don't just collect old games and systems, but you also like, you know, Walkmans and VCRs, and like you get VHS tapes. Like you get a lot of, like, from your perspective, retro technology.
Yeah. But also, I don't think it's not... I don't think it's just because it's old either. I think it's just because, like, it's interesting how we've... I don't want to say evolved from there, but, you know... just, you know... I don't know. But... Yes.
No, I hear what you're saying, though.
True.
Just the history of it, like where we were and where we've gotten.
Yeah.
Like, is it your I guess what I'm asking is it your gateway to experience a time you weren't there for? Like, is that part of it for you, or have you even given any of this any thought?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that.
Because people throw around the word nostalgia all the time, and I guess you can sort of be nostalgic for things that you weren't there for, because maybe you grew up with them, and so it is a part of your history now. But it seems to me like you get, not to put words in your mouth, but it seems like you get really interested in stuff you weren't there for, and it's not like nostalgia. It's like experiencing periods that you weren't around for.
Yeah.
I bring this up because when I was growing up, comics absolutely gave me that. That's part of
Okay.
what got me hard into comics is it transported me to the 70s and 80s. I wasn't there for like early 80s. Like, I was like, a kid, and I was born in 84, so I'm a kid through most of the 80s. And like, I'm a little kid. And so I could go back to these old books and I could recognize that the world in them looked a little bit different from the one I was living in.
Yeah.
And it felt like being transported to another time. And I think it connected me more in my mind to adults in my life that were there for that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like that's the world they inhabited, and I get to kind of feel like I'm experiencing it to some degree because I'm reading the stuff that they would have been able to read at that point. Mm-hmm. And same thing with movies and stuff. But I think that's part of why I was interested in comics, because I wasn't reading new. They were more expensive than the stuff that I could just walk into a flea market and get. And so, and I could buy more at a time. So I was getting a lot of stuff from before I was born. Particularly when I started. I think most everything I was buying was probably from before I was born.
Yeah.
Or when I was really little.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered if maybe you had some of that with video games.
Yeah, I do. I do. But I don't have that at all with comics.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know.
Is that just because you
I think it's
read a lot of old stuff anyway? Like,
I think it's maybe technology and not... Because I am a lot more into the history of technology than, I like a lot of stories from, the 60s to the 90s and whatever. And I like my eras, but it's not because, I like specific eras of comics, but it's not because it's old. It's just because I like those stories.
it's just a preference thing.
Yeah, it's just like I like, early 2000s DC, but
see, I see all of that as
not because I wish
it's kind
I was
of
born
a
in
way to
the
time travel. And I've never had this with video games because all the stuff I like to play is what was coming out.
Right.
And so I was there for everything I go back to.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Like, there's some arcades and stuff, like Gallagher or whatever.
Magnavox Odyssey.
Yeah, but, like, I was never an Atari guy. I can't get into that. Like,
Right.
like everything I like, I was there for, but not with comics.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of the comics I like now was stuff that I was there for, that I read later, that I could have been there for but didn't read. You know what I mean? But I've always seen that as more of a time machine.
Yeah.
And with the video games, it's more getting back in touch with my own childhood.
Yeah. That's fair.
Septic Stream, to me, collecting all these older console games is so important for preserving the original hardware, just personally, because I love emulation, but you'll never get the 100% genuine experience.
And that's what I was saying at the beginning, too.
Yeah, for me, emulation, unless it's just really glitchy, is usually close enough. Especially when I'm thinking about dollar amounts, where I'm like, yeah, it's just not worth having to pay $100 to play this game. Like, there's very few things that I would see worth that. And then there's always the worry that it's going to get scratched up and you're not going to be able to play it anyway. And, like, that just drives me nuts to think that I would pay that kind of money and then 6 months later I can't play it anymore. And there's no way to get my money back.
You know what the only thing that fixed that for me was?
What's that?
Playing, like, Super Nintendo and N64 and other, games from that era on a CRT.
Well, sure.
That just made me want to go back and do more collecting from that era. Which is interesting, but yeah.
No, because those games do definitely look better that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I just always ignored the irritating things about it because I don't have to pay for it,
Yeah.
But it's funny, that doesn't work as well for me with comics. Like, like I said, I read a lot more digital now because it's just more cost effective. But if I like something enough, I tend to physically get it. And I don't have that as much with video games.
Mm-hmm.
There was another comment I wanted to read. Senior Sticks said something I was going to read, and I can't find it now. Oh, he says, I think gaming collections are better in replay value.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
that's the big thing that video games have over comics.
And again, not to beat a dead horse, but it's about different. For me, it's about different interests, about different motivations. So, like I said, I do like surrounding myself with games, but with comics, that's kind of a more important thing for me. So, like, I always owned games more to play them than to display them or just know that I had them, which is why when I was younger, I sold a couple of things that now I kind of wish I hadn't sold, just because I had other ways to play them. And so I went, well, I don't need this anymore. And I don't think of myself like as a big game collector, but there are a few things I used to have that I kind of wish I hung on to. I've got more of a collecting mentality about it than I used to. Mm-hmm. And there are certain things that just on principle, even if I have other ways to play them, I want the physical copy of, and as complete as I can get it. And so in that way, it's a little bit like comics. But games I was owned to play, again, it's complicated now, but for the most part, that was the point. And for comics, it was always a little bit more about collecting than reading. Which is weird because I'm such a story guy, and I have reviewed comics for a long time, and I read a lot more now than I used to, and I read stuff when I was a kid, but it was a lot more about owning them and just sorting them and having them when I was a kid than it was even about reading them. Now I wasn't like that guy that bought all these books and just sorted them and never read them like I did, but I didn't go back to a lot of them all that often.
Yeah.
But I wasn't worried about replay value. It was really more about just having them.
Yeah. And Sebastian Travis kind of adds to this, and he says that video games have multiplayer, which helps a lot with replay value.
Oh, sure.
Otherwise, single player, it's subjective, just like comics and films. Yeah.
I just think it's a little bit odder to own games just to have games, and I think in my brain it makes more sense to do that with comics, but some that's just because I did that growing up. Yeah. But some people think I'm weird with that. Some people are like, the only reason to own comics is to read them, and I've heard people say, I don't like having books on my shelves that I don't read, that are just sitting there. I'm like, but if you have enough of them, you're not going to be able to read them very often. When people talk about book, and I mean books, when people talk about like books on a shelf, like they're crying out to you, asking you to read them, and you should just sell them if you never read them. And I'm like, if you own a library of 3,000 books, how often should you be expected to read them? Like, having a library is about access. And so it's weird if you buy a book and you never read it, and I definitely have lots of books I've never read. Or I guess I say it's weird if that's your mentality, is like your books are screaming for you to read them. But are they doing that after you've read them once? Like should you sell them? Like, how many years should they be on your shelf before you go, I own too many things, I'm surrounded by clutter, I got to get rid of this? Like, I've never completely understood that, because for me, and maybe I'm just weird, but for me, comics are, the quality is important, the quantity is fun. Like I can't help it. I don't find myself wanting to get rid of all the comics I've never read.
Yeah.
Like, I have a bunch I probably should finally read at some point. I also have a lot of stuff that's like in runs that I don't have all the runs of, so I'd be more likely to read it in digital so I can get all of it.
But you also have that with video games. I mean,
I do own video games I've never played.
That you are getting or meaning to get to.
But that's because I just never got around to them, and that I do feel more weird about. Where it's like, that's just sitting on a shelf. I should finally play that at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
some of that is also just getting older and having less time to do it. And so you'll find something at a good price and you'll go, I should get that now. I don't know when that's going to come up again. And then 2 years later, you see it on your shelf and you're like, crap, I forgot I even bought that. You know, and when you're 40 and you got a lot of kids, that, you know, you're more likely to do that kind of thing. Let's go ahead and wrap up here. What else? This really did just turn it into a GNN, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Senior Sticks comics, 1 buys 2 copies, 1 for box, 1 for reading. People used to do a lot more of that. Yes, I do not do that.
No.
And again, well, and they used to be more impulse, and so you could get away with that more when they were cheaper. It's really weird to do that now when they're $5, you know. Yeah. Although I say that, like I said, I buy for covers some, so I do have a few things that I bought multiple times to get multiple covers. So that's partly why the reread value, replay value isn't as big of a deal to me, because well, I get to look at the covers. It's sort of like, yes, there's interiors, and yes, they're important, and yes, it's about stories, but it's also about the art on the front for me. And so if it's like you said earlier, it is kind of like trading cards. So it's like, you know, people used to buy trading cards just to look at, like that's all it was. And I grew up in that era. So for me, comics are more multi-purpose than video games. Let me say it like that. There's the cover, which is a trading card. It's a big oversized trading card. If the art's real pretty, I might drop $5 just to display that someplace for a while. And then I put it in a box, and then later I remember I have that, and I throw it up on a rack. I bought most of the zombie variants for the Power Rangers books, and I bought a couple of copies of the same book just to get the zombie variants. And they look really cool.
Yeah.
And so yes, I'll read the interiors when I get to those stories, but it's also about what's on the front. So so for me, the whole replay value thing is almost like talking about replay value for trading cards. Well, if it's not a game, there's not any playing you're doing in the first place. You own it for a different reason. And I'll just say this real quick, and I won't get deep into this because I want to wrap up, but it's not like you buy action figures for any other reason after you're a certain age than to display them.
Yeah.
Comics can also be that way, and video games, I guess, can, especially if you have it in box.
Yeah.
I mean, like they can look cool on a shelf. There's also box art and stuff. And I did say earlier, comics can or video games can be more displayable.
And all 3 of these things.
But there is that expectation of actually playing the thing and having replay value.
Yeah, well, and all 3 of these things you can, use as a kid and then grow out of it and then display it for nostalgia. But yeah, you're right.
John Kelling, what about card collecting? I don't know when he said that, but I was just talking about card collecting.
Right before you said that. So.
Yeah. So I don't know, when you have a bunch of them like I do, it feels more like card collecting.
Yeah.
And so I'm of 2 brains of it, where it's like, on the one hand, it is odd that I have...
why you don't collect cards?
Yeah, partly. I mean, I collected cards when I was a kid, and I have a bunch of stuff from when I was a kid. But, yeah, I don't know. It feels quaint now in a way comics don't. It's hard to explain.
People don't really collect cards anymore that aren't a game.
That aren't a game, yeah. And I think some of it is, there's just, because people aren't collecting them anymore, what little does come out isn't as enticing to me, because I don't find out about it much, you know what I mean? Like... Yeah. If there were more people doing it and there was a lot of cool product being put out, I might be more interested in that if I had like a cool way to display it.
Yeah. Well, and I play trading card games, but I don't collect them. Like,
yeah. You buy them to play with.
Yeah. And that is something where I do specifically buy them to play with.
I was in a Walmart today, and I can't remember if it was Upper Deck or what the company was, but somebody had put out a box. It was like 8 packs you could buy. It was like a little box of Superman trading cards. They were just trading cards, and it felt like the '90s again. And like these things do still come out, but it's weird to see them at retail, like in a box store.
Yeah.
And I looked at the back of the box to see what the art was like and what they looked like, and it was real throwback. Like they looked like '90s cards, and some of them were comic covers, and some of them weren't. And I was like, if this whole box was nothing but comic covers, I would have actually considered it.
That would be great. Yeah.
Real quick, let me see what else people are saying here, and then we're gonna go ahead and get going. Septic Stream is just mentioning that he watched the TNG episode Inner Light and really liked it. Yeah, Inner Light's great. It's not it's not a top 10 episode for me. Like a lot of people think that's the best episode of that show. I do think it's really moving.
Yeah,
certainly. It's not even my favorite Picard episode, but I get why it's beloved.
The big problem
certainly.
for me is I don't think it's very indicative of the rest of the show.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
For it to be like a top episode. It's great in its own right. And it is a great episode. It might be in my top 10. I don't know. I also only saw it a couple times, so I should finally watch all of TNG and do a top 10.
Yeah, I love the simplicity of that.
Mm-hmm.
My thing with Inner Light was always I kind of wish we'd never cut back to the crew.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot we did.
You know, well, and we don't throughout, which is good. I mean, we're with Picard through most of that episode, but we make it clear from the beginning that he is in some kind of a coma, and I think it'd be cool if it felt more like a Brandon Braga, what the heck is going on kind of episode, and he lives this whole life, and then you find out what's actually been happening.
Mm-hmm.
Little known fact, I was thinking of that episode a lot when I made Spawn Year.
That makes sense.
Jayson,
well,
do you see anything else?
I guess you do cut back to real life a little bit in Spawn Year. I forgot about that.
Well, yeah, but there's always the question as to whether you're actually looking at real life, though.
Yeah. Well, you're not, because it's a web series that you made.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it.
I think we should wrap up by saying watch the Superhero Rewind movie when it comes out.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say that.
Ah, dang it.
So, yeah, that comes out Friday. And our top 2 Super Chatters tonight are going to get a link to that. And you'll be able to watch it right now if you want to, if you send me an email. Jayson, who are our top Super Chatters tonight? It looks like John Early is one of them.
And Robbie the Sky.
John Early and Robbie the Sky. Robbie the Sky might have actually already gotten a link. I can't remember. But you guys, and actually, John Early should already have a link too. So those guys honestly might already. But if you don't have a link yet, send me an email. I will give you a link. And otherwise, thank you guys just for the super chats, for the support. Really appreciate it. I think we kind of just jumped all over the place with this topic, Jayson. Do you have any big kind of wrap up thoughts? Like, what's your main takeaway from this discussion?
I think comic collecting is easier, but video game collecting is more fun.
Even with the expense of it?
Yeah. At least for me.
Because we really didn't talk about having to avoid things you just can't afford that you probably really want. I mean, obviously that happens in comics too, but
yeah. I think video game collecting is more fun for me, and I would argue that it looks a bit cooler just because, like we said, comics are just in a bunch of boxes.
Yeah, that's the tough thing with that is you got to come up with a way to display them.
Yeah,
the more you have, the less you can do that with.
Mm-hmm.
And games you can have, you can face them on a shelf.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like for me, comics still kind of win in every category, especially for now. But I think it just depends on, uh, like how much money you're willing to part with to get the stuff you really care about. And the less you make it about an investment with both of these things, the more worth it is, and the more I understand whatever you're willing to pay for a thing that you just really want. You know what I mean? Um, there's a lot more that can go wrong with video games, particularly if you plan to actually play them. Where it's like you have controllers that go out, you have systems that go out.
Yeah.
All of that makes it tougher. For me personally, and this is just our very specific situation, uh, comics are more fun to collect because I kind of have everything I care about with games now.
Yeah.
Like I've also been game collecting for a long time, and I have just real specific things that I like. And even if I run into an old game now that I didn't grow up with, I don't necessarily have to own it. Like if I can emulate it, or if I can download it on Switch or something, like I don't necessarily have to have the old one because I don't have that connection with it. And so again, not to repeat myself too much, but there's that like keeping in touch with my own childhood thing. And I had that with comics some too, with video games versus with comics. That's a medium I guess I'm like in general more passionate about, and like storytelling I'm more passionate about in general, than I am like the interactive aspects of video games. And so I will fall in love with a new comic that doesn't have any nostalgia for me in any way, and have to own that. But with video games, it's really a lot more about, again, just being in touch with my childhood, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of there for different reasons.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like for you, video games are more like what comics are for me.
Yeah, I think so.
So that certainly makes a lot more
Which
sense.
is really interesting because I don't know, I think I got a bit of both throughout my childhood. But
Septic Streamer, you guys going to do more commentaries on Star Trek episodes, maybe even TOS, or finally doing the Beyond commentary? I would like to. We were making the movie, and so we had to put that on hold, and now I'm doing the new comic show. There's just been more interest in comics and stuff. I really like doing Star Trek content. It's very niche on the channel, and so I don't know if it'll ever be weekly again, but I certainly would like to do more of that. And yes, we should at least do the Beyond commentary at some point. And I know Brandon and Adam would like to do more of that, but there's just only so much time in the week, and
yeah.
To some degree, I've got to prioritize what more people are interested in. To some degree,
The Beyond commentary should be with me and my first time watching that movie.
Oh yeah, I mean we could do that, sure. Because yeah, you haven't seen that. But no, don't get me wrong. Like I miss doing Star Trek content.
Yeah.
But anyway,
You also have so many episodes of like old Trek experts and.
Yeah, I mean we did do a lot of Trek content back in the day. But
Yeah.
anyway, well, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and
I
this was
was
Jayson. Movie comes out Friday. Look forward to that, and I hope you enjoy it. And Austin and I will be back for The Request tomorrow night. We're going to review Curse of the White Knight, and that's Batman book. We'll see you later, folks. Thanks for watching.
Wow.
I wanna take you for